I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what Cafe Connections is, but I want to give you a little bit of a story too. Whenever I do this, I like to tell stories because it helps for you to connect with the ministry that we do at Cafe Connections. Back in 2011, 10 years ago now, in January, we left our last ministry, a place of ministry in New Orleans. We served as missionaries, port chaplains, serving on the Mississippi River. And we just got to do international missions from the States, and it was great because I didn't have to get on a plane. I'm scared of planes, so it was great. They came to me. In 2011, that ministry ended and we left. And I remember when we left New Orleans, it was 5 o'clock in the morning, and we were driving, Steve was driving the U-Haul, and I was following in the car behind. And I remember crossing Lake Pontchartrain and looking back at the Mississippi River, and there were all these ships that we had been ministering on. And I remember tears were falling out of my eyes like crazy. And I remember telling the Lord, I said, I don't know what you have in store for us, but I said, I'll do anything you want me to do. But I ask you, please, Lord, don't make me work with ungrateful Americans. That's what I said. And because I worked with internationals for so long, they were grateful for socks. They were grateful for toothpaste. And I knew what I was going to be dealing with if he made me do that. Well, about 10 months later, we find ourselves on the streets of Main Street, establishing a place called Cafe Connections. And we opened, it'll be 9 years at the end of this month. However, during those times of days of renovation, I had no idea who was my neighbor on the streets. Lo and behold, Behavioral Health Services of Pickens County was my neighbor. How many of you know what Behavioral Health Services of Pickens County does? They work with drug and alcoholics, trying to get off drugs and alcohol. And I thought, oh my goodness, don't you have a sense of humor, God? He has spent the last 9 years transforming me. Over the years, I have been lied to, I've been stolen from, I have been manipulated, the whole 9 yards. I even had a car stolen from somebody. And talk about forgiveness, buddy. I've had to learn how to forgive a lot. But at the same time, God has been working in my heart to teach me how to love people that are not like me. And boy, is that challenging and humbling. We run, Cafe Connections is a hospitality ministry to the city of Pickens. We deal with a lot of different people, drug addicts, alcoholics, the homeless, people with mental health issues come in, but we also have doctors and lawyers that come in, business people that come in just for the peace and quiet. And because they know when they walk through that door that there's something different. They have literally asked me, they said, this is so peaceful. Why is it so peaceful? And I'll laugh and I said, well, his name is the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
And they'll laugh, that nervous giggle. But they know that something's different. We provide cake and coffee, free Wi-Fi. We do copying for people. We help people on the internet look for jobs. Just a whole myriad of things. We'll have people that are sent over from the court system that they are going through a difficult time, and they'll say, why don't you go visit Cafe Connection? And they'll come in and they'll say, I was told that you would pray with me, and I will pray with them right there, you know. During COVID, we've had a lot of people that have come in off the street, and they are so lonely and so isolated that they'll come in and they'll come back to my office and they'll say, Miss Ann, will you hug me? And I say, come here. So I give them a hug. I am not afraid of COVID.
Amen.
I have some of the things that we do. Our primary tribe, as I like to call them, are the drug addicts and alcoholics, and the homeless. But we also have a bunch of other people that come in there. And God has been teaching me how to love like He does. Stop with the expectations. I am a person that I base things on how well you respond. I'm a results-oriented type person. And when I see the same thing over and over again, I get really upset sometimes. And God is teaching me, love like me, love like me. I've got one story. Dennis came to the cafe about 3 or 4 years ago. And Dennis would sit out at the front of the cafe when he first came, and he would never come in. And Steve would go out and he would bring him coffee, and he would sit out there and talk to him. And eventually, we got Dennis to come in. And what we found out about Dennis is that Dennis had just gotten out of prison. He had been in prison for 38 years for murder. And yes, I do see people that have murdered people in the cafe. Not in the cafe. Nobody's been murdered in the cafe. But I have seen people that have murdered and they come into the cafe. One day I was standing in my office and it was just Dennis and I. It was just us there. And Dennis was talking to me. And he just opened up and he started telling me about his life story. And he was telling me what he had done, how he had done it, what happened to him, all the horrific things that you could expect to hear about going on in a state pen. He told me about it. And he told me, he said, Miss Ann, he said, I just want to tell you something. He said, you're pretty cool. And I said, well, thanks. And he said, when I first came here, you scared me. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, I scared you? You just told me all this stuff and I am here by myself with you. And he said, you're pretty cool. Said, I really like it here. And I said, great. So we started this relationship for the last 3 or 4 years. I see Dennis pretty much every day. He comes in. I know more about Dennis than most people should. And we have deep conversations about spiritual things. And back in September or October of last year, he came in and I knew something was wrong. And I said, Dennis, what's the matter? He just wasn't there. And he said, Miss Ann, I think I've got some bad heroin. And I said, Dennis, do you want me to call the ambulance? He said, no. And he started crying. He was standing at the bar. I was on the other side of the bar, and he was crying. I mean, just crying. He said, Miss Ann, he said, please stop the demons from coming after me. And I couldn't talk to him. He was just crying and screaming, stop the demons. And I didn't know what else to do. But I took his hands. I said, Dennis, I said, let me have your hands. And I took those dirty old hands, and he was crying bucket loads over my hands. He's snotting all over me, girls. All over my counters and everything. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not afraid of COVID. I may be afraid of this, but I'm not afraid of COVID. And I prayed with him. He stayed the rest of the day and was coming off the high and everything. And he went on, and in about a couple of days, he came back and he said, Miss Ann, he said, been thinking a lot about what you said. And I said, Dennis, I said, you're not going to escape the demons until you give your heart to Jesus Christ. He can make it all better. And he said, Miss Ann, he said, God doesn't want me. He said, I know what I've done. And I said, Dennis, that's a lie straight from the pit of hell. And I said, you need to listen to God. He's trying to call you and bring you to himself. I'm still praying for Dennis. I ask that you remember him. He's a regular at the cafe, and I love him. And I am convinced that if Dennis is in that building and somebody was to come after me, Dennis would take him to the floor. You know, he would protect me. In closing, I just want to say, I had read a book called, I think Patty, you referred this book to me. It's called Daring to Hope. Her name is Katie Davis Majors, who wrote the book. And she's a young missionary, and she serves in Uganda. And Katie says the following. She says, faithfulness, which is paramount to having a faith-filled life, is when we pour into hard people over and over. And when we continue to serve in difficult situations, when we intentionally choose to lean into him in our troubles as well as our joys. Faithfulness is a habit formed in our hearts when no one is looking. When the day is done and the stars creep out at night and we realize our call isn't easy, but we don't turn away.